it seems like one of the most valuable currencies today is the personal brand.
It definitely is, because my situation over the last couple of months is a perfect example. Like, if you would have told me this time last year that I wouldn't have a digital marketing agency, I would have thought you were crazy. But I launched Builders of Authority, did that on the side for 3 months. Now we're a little over 3 months of doing just this. And we've already done 6 figures in business. We have about $20,000 in recurring revenue. That would not have been possible if I didn't have a personal brand.
I am super excited today. I've got Adam McChesney in here. In this industry, he's been a friend that's been around for a long time with me, and we've hung out in real life outside of the virtual world in Zooms and stuff like this several times. I always have a fantastic time with Adam. What I really love about Adam is that not only has he like walked the walk, he also gives back, and he loves to help people. And he's somebody that's built multiple big businesses, won a bunch of awards, done all kinds of things, but he's kept the humility, and he's kept this kind of like passion for helping people, which is something that I resonate with. And that's a big part of why we're doing this podcast, is trying to uncover the greatness and the things that people did right to have success with their agency. So Adam, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm stoked to have you. How are you doing?
Patrick, thanks for having me, man. I'm doing really well. I appreciate those kind words. And it's funny. I was thinking about coming on, obviously the podcast today, and I was like, man, we've known each other virtually at least since 2018, and how many different people have probably came out of both of our lives. And so it's refreshing to have people like yourself, and obviously me for you, that are what I would consider real people, right? That aren't just looking to like screw us over or do all those things. And I know you and I have both had situations even up to recently where those things have happened. And so it's just refreshing to have someone like you in my circle. So I'm honored to be here.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's true. And this is part of it. Like what I've learned, let's just talk about it. As you build things up and you make more of a name for yourself, then you seem to have a bigger target on your back. And with that, with the bigger target, sometimes people find a way to stick a knife in it. And the important thing that is like, we don't want to change who we are to prevent that, right? Like we've survived it and we've become stronger for it. But I think there's this idea of like, hey, I need to be more careful in the future. And like, hey, to some extent that's true, but it's also not true. We want to make sure that we stay open and that we like give other people a chance, and we're not just like always looking over our shoulder, because what happens, what you've been through, what I've been through, it didn't make us worse. Like looking back on things, I think it made us better. Do you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. And I think kind of the foundation of it all is, like you said, you don't want to change, but what you have to change is your mindset, because you are a new person at different levels. So one of my biggest flaws and downside is I actually lack self-confidence, like truly on the foundation, which is crazy coming from a guy that does all the personal branding content, that's spoken on all these different stages. Is I have been convinced by other people that I need their money or I need their X, Y, and Z because I'm not capable enough to do something on my own. And years ago, when Patrick first met Adam, 2018, 2020, 2021, I didn't have the experience. I didn't have a lot of that stuff. So I did need people. I did, became a franchise of an agency after running my own agency. And then I took that franchise and was successful with it, then became a partner of everything. But at different stages throughout that process, I made decisions I probably shouldn't have, not because I wasn't good enough, but it was because I didn't trust myself to actually go through the obstacles I needed to go through in order to get out on the other side. So I was looking for ways, like they always say, sometimes you just have to run through the wall. I was trying to figure out how to dive under it, how to get an airplane to go over it, how to just walk around it. And at every point I've done that in my business, I've almost regretted it pretty instantly.
Yeah, sometimes like these learning lessons that we're trying to avoid are the ones that we need the most. And like, if we weren't, we would already know it. That's just the way it is. And there's a lot to that, after coaching people for years, there's like the chocolate and the broccoli. That's something I always go back to. Like, we want the chocolate, we need the broccoli. And a lot of times people, what they think they need is more tactics, but a lot of times it's our own selves that's really holding us back. It's like this mental stuff. And just like you, I had things that I believed about myself that were limiting beliefs that as I leveled up and I look back on things, yeah, they're still there. Like I think they're there for everyone, no matter what level they're at. Right. But this quote of the person who says they can and the person who says they can't, they're both right. And there's a reason behind that. You know, it's something I tell my students all the time is no matter where you are, there's somebody out there that's more successful than you with less skills, where they've just decided that they're enough and they just ran with it and they make it work. And it's like, for me, that's encouraging when I hear that. I'm like, man, I just got to believe in here a little bit more, you know, and then I can make this happen.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't reach anywhere near their full potential because of their lack of self-confidence. Now, you can go on the wrong end too and have way too big of an ego and have way too much self-confidence. And we've all seen that happen as well. But there is a middle space. There's a space to go from both of those things and then be just fine.
For sure. Yeah. So in our agency, I don't know if you've run this. We run EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, in our agency. And through that, you kind of develop your core beliefs, your core principles. And one of ours is being humbly confident, right? It's like believing in yourself, but not being like a jackass about it and having like the biggest feathers. It's more of like, hey, I know that I can do this and I'm going to find a way. Let's change gears for a second, man. I want to go back to your story of how did you get into this and what did you do before?
Yeah, so I spent 5 years in medical device sales. So I thought that's kind of what I always wanted to do, really from when I found out about it in college. So I played college soccer at an MAI school in Columbia, Missouri. And I saw a couple of guys come back to alumni events and they're driving nice cars and, you know, we're going out to the bars and they're paying for everything. And, you know, it's like this whole of like, what do you do for work? And they were like medical sales. And I'm like, okay. I didn't really know what sales was. And I certainly didn't really know what medical device sales was, although I still am a type 1 diabetic. So I kind of knew that it was a thing. I just didn't know like what career field or what major do I have to go into in order to be able to obviously get that job. So I kind of fumbled my way through college, fumbled my way after college for about a year and a half after graduating. And then I finally got my first real job in medical device sales. So I did that for 5 years, most notably at a company called ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with CPAP equipment, the masks, the devices, all that stuff, that's what I sold. I managed about a $25 million a year territory from the age of 27 up to about 29 and grew it by about 10 million. And so I learned a lot of my sales skills there, all the typical skills that like you need to learn in order to be successful. But what I didn't realize is that what I thought I was getting into in medical device sales, what I was looking at all the wrong things. I was looking at the money. I was looking at the nice things. I was looking at the reality of the good things and not that it was going to take me a bunch of time in terms of I was traveling about 75% of the time in order to make that money. So in 2018, I was sitting in a hotel room 2 days before Thanksgiving, and I was in Kansas City, Missouri, and I typed in how to make money online. Saw a bunch of different ads on Google, didn't touch anything with it. And then I came back on Facebook and I saw this nice, like shiny apartment complex, basically said something along the lines of, wouldn't it be cool if you could own this without actually owning it, worrying about repairs, all that stuff. So that's where I met you in that course, bought that course. And from 2018 to 2020, I built 200 websites on my own. I sucked at selling the leads. So I was putting all the shoes on the shelf, building the case studies and building the assets and actually getting pretty decent results. Like 2 of those 200 sites generated so many phone calls, we started businesses with them. So it wasn't that I wasn't good at generating the leads. I was so scared to sell something different. And I was also scared if my employer found out I was doing this. So I kind of went under the radar, started to make some money in 2019, but in 2020 really started to make some money really in about Q1, right before the pandemic. And so pandemic happens, long story short, I doubled down even further because medical device sales was pretty much shut down. And I decided to go all in July 1st, 2020. So we're coming up on 4 years now. So that's kind of how I got started and what I did before.
This is awesome. And I know parts of this story, right? We've had this conversations. I participated and witnessed it from kind of like the sideline. So you went from kind of like July of 2020 is really when we went all in. Where were you from a MRR standpoint in July of 2020?
So July 2020, I was at $10,000. It was all rank and rent.
Rank and rent. So what is that?
Yeah. So basically building digital real estate in the form of website, Google business profile, getting obviously ideally to the first page of Google. When leads come in, you're basically brokering the lead, pay per lead, monthly flat rate, commission. You're an outsourced sales rep, if the way that I always tell people. So I was finding ways to make different money and things like that. So that's what I was making with rank and rent when I decided to go all in. And so I was making more than that, like top line at ResMed. And so I'm sitting here, not even like I sucked at business. So I'm sitting here, I'm like $10,000, but then I got to pay for all the hosting and all the different things. And like, I realized I wasn't really making much in that $10,000. So I started doing some networking and things like that and building my personal brand in August of 24. And I started getting kind of like inbound traffic for just traditional digital marketing. So roofing company, landscaping company, flooring company, they need the website, they need the SEO, they need all those things. And at that point I was like, man, I need the money. So I started, we just bought our forever dream house in May of 2024 or May of 2020. And I left a $200,000 a year job with all the benefits and all the nice stuff. So I started chasing those things. Right. And so I kind of started from zero again in August of 2020 and put the lead gen, like I still had the lead gen stuff, but I was like, hey, I'm really going to like shut this thing down or at least flip most of them. I sold a couple of the websites just outright to people. And then I turned a couple of them into companies.
Got it. What does it mean to turn it into a company? You started your own business in that company?
Yeah. So like for our auto glass, that website was built at the end of 2018. And right before the pandemic hit, I started noticing it was getting like 30 or 40 phone calls a month. And so I was here in St. Louis and I was sending it to a guy who lives about 15 minutes away from me. And one man shop, been in business for like 20 years. And he was super chill with getting like 30 to 40 phone calls a month because he's like, yeah, I'm not like, I get mostly referrals, I get all that stuff. Well, like something happened where it went from like 30 to 40 to like 300 in like a month or two. So it was right when I got to the first page of Google. So he was like, hey man, I can't pay, your worth on all this stuff. So this is like middle of 2020. And so for the back half of 2020, he was just underpaying for this stuff because I'm like, I can't do anything with this. And I tried calling around and I tried to sell the website to the Safelight. And so finally, at the end of 2020, I ended up having an idea that we're just going to go start this company. We started it officially in January of 2021 and just became everybody's competitor.
It's kind of amazing to learn this skill set. And then it's really the foundation of what people need for business. And big business owners are not the ones like whoever owns Safelight. They're not installing the glass. They've hired people and they've offloaded it, right? So you have the ability to create the leads in this business. You don't have to be the one that installs the glass, right? You can take this in and kind of just like you were with the rank and rent, you can be the middleman, right? Where it comes in, now you're just taking a bigger cut of it and you have the ability to kind of control the business dynamics to, run this business and maybe the way that somebody that understands like technology and the online space and the automations and business savvy, which maybe like, hey, there's contractors in every business that have that. But what I've learned, a lot of those guys, I mean, they're not printed out that way. They don't come out of the box where it's like they have a master's degree in business, right? A lot of them are trying to figure things out and they're really good at what they do. So sometimes they're missing out on some of these skills that we have with what we're building, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's opportunity everywhere. And when I first started that auto glass company, I was super scared because I don't know the first thing about auto glass. And I ended up partnering with the guy Another terrible partnership situation. Luckily, I didn't give him equity, but I gave him profit sharing. But he ended up stealing a bunch of money. He ended up driving our $70,000 truck across the country and not destroying it completely, but like wrecking it a little bit. But again, I lacked the confidence at that time to go figure out the things I needed to figure out. I thought I was going to start an auto glass company simultaneously to my digital marketing company and was just going to start making money because we were generating phone calls. I thought, oh, how hard can this be? And I realized I had shiny object syndrome. I was running the digital marketing agency and that wasn't going as quick. That was like very beginning of 2021. So we were at 30,000 a month in revenue, maybe 20, honestly, at the time. But then the marketing agency took off. The auto glass company started to go and then had some issues with employees and things like that. And then in May of 2021, we launched a landscape design business too.
I don't think I knew that one. Yeah. How was it? You kind of went to school with when you launched this auto glass. There's a lot of things that we had assumed maybe that we still had to learn. But now when you go to watch the landscape design, you're in a little bit better spot where you've seen this from a different angle. How did that impact the second company, or I guess what was the third company now that you were launching?
So, I mean, we were profitable almost instantly compared to the auto glass company. We weren't profitable for over a year because we lost money and things like that. So we did end up having to shut down the landscape design business because it's a joint venture now with another local company. But the landscape design business was actually a guy that I met through another client that he wanted to run the company. And so I was basically a smaller equity partner in that company, just focusing on the marketing and sales. And he was focusing on the day-to-day. Whereas with the auto glass stuff, I was 100% owner at the time. I was CEO, if you will, like terrible foundation for that. So we learned a lot of lessons in 4 months, and I've learned a lot of lessons over the last couple of years. I'm glad I went through those things. Again, very expensive lessons, but it's made me a more lethal business owner. And I think kind of transitioning into why we had so much success in our agency, my medical device in corporate America experience, combined with my vast knowledge of running other businesses outside of an agency, combined with my skill set of the agency services, was really the secret sauce that allowed us to grow as quickly as we did and really get to where we're at today.
I mean, it's a lot to draw on to be able to pull all this stuff in. If you had advice for somebody else, maybe that is in this industry, they've been running an agency and they're considering like starting a business within the clients that they've been serving, what would you tell them? What would you have done differently?
If you can partner with someone, even though like partnering is very, very tough, it's like a marriage. I would rather have a smaller piece of equity than the entire pie in a service-based business where I did not know how to do the actual do. Very few people should be owning in most instances. Now, if you're doing mergers and acquisitions and you're buying a roofing company that's already established with all that stuff, that's completely different. Go buy the whole thing, own 100% of it. Not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is starting something from scratch. Go find somebody with industry experience. Go find somebody that's working at another roofing company, for example, but they just don't have the confidence or the money to go start their own thing. You bring what you bring to the table and marry those two things. Or maybe you bring in two partners. I would say if you're niche down, so let's say you're a marketing agency that only works with landscapers and you go start your landscaping company, you are going to have a very, very successful marketing agency, most likely regardless of how successful your landscaping design business or landscaping business is. Most marketing agencies can't market themselves. They can't.
Let's go to that. That seems to be kind of the bread and butter for Adam, right? So let's talk about that. Adam now, has a coaching program that teaches branding. Adam, take us through, before we jump into this, I just want to give a little more context. So tell us the kind of life cycle of these businesses. We went from the medical sales, we started the marketing agency, then we started the windshield company, landscape design, shut that down. Where are we now with all these different things? What happened next?
My agency at the time was called Ms. Marketing. And so that launched in 2018, full-time in 2020. In 2021, so about 9 months into business, we were right around $30,000 a month in revenue. I ended up through Blake Snodgrass, which I know you and I both know Blake. He was a franchisee of Height Digital and was like, hey, man, like, I know you're good at sales, but I know you hate like processes and systems and fulfillment and all that stuff. Become a franchise of Height. So I became a franchise of Height in April, going into May of 2021, and did that for 2 years. We scaled from $30,000 a month to $100K a month in 6 months. Then in December of 2022, so about a year and a half after I started at 30K, we hit 200K a month in revenue. So that was kind of like our top out point. We did like 205 1 month with about 175 or 176,000 in recurring revenue. And so that kind of led to multiple Inc. 5000 awards, High Digital Franchise of the Year, 2021, 2022. And then I became a partner at all of Height, June of 2023, and kind of just took away running business myself, was a partner and a VP inside the company, but I've been since exited out of the day-to-day, still a shareholder, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But I launched Builders of Authority back in December of 2023. So we're, as of this recording, a little over 6 months in. And we can I think we'll probably dive into that probably a little bit deeper here with the branding conversation, but that's been a coaching program, one-to-one group coaching. We have a course, we have our events. We're actually throwing an event here next week in St. Louis, and a couple other things that we do specifically related to helping business owners build a personal brand separate from their business.
So this is not something that applies solely to agency owners. This is for business owners of like how to set up their personal brand. And like, Adam, what's the purpose? Like, why does it matter to have a personal brand? How important is that? Or should we be building it more towards our business brand?
That's a great question. It isn't just for marketing agencies. Now, I will say in our group, we probably got about 50% marketing agency owners that are like active in the community. Those are the ones that are having the greatest success in our community because it's basically an Adam McChesney digital marketing agency blueprint. Whereas we also have some real estate investors, some coaches and consultants, some service-based business owners that are in there too, because I believe that everybody has a personal brand, whether you know it or not. Your personal brand is simply what other people think about you when you're not in the room. Ideally, it's a good thing. And ideally, they're also thinking, oh, Patrick does X, Y, and Z for work and runs X, Y, and Z business. That's kind of the thought process behind it. But I'll take you all the way back to medical device sales. So my first medical device sales job, I was working for a small company here in St. Louis. I had an 18-state territory. I was gone 80% of the year, most all on the East Coast. And we were the small guy in the medical field of chemicals and sales reagents for medical schools and institutions. So Boston was like the big place that I would go to all the time because it's basically a tech hub with all the schools that are out there, like Harvard Medical School, et cetera. We had to go compete with people. I would go to Harvard's medical campus, and there were 4 reps just on that campus. And I had an 18-state territory. And so I had to go compete, right, by knocking on doors, getting told no a heck of a lot, and just basically doing it in a volume instance. I had to be on the road all the time in order to make money. Then I got on with ResMed. And in CPAP, there's one other competitor for devices, and two other competitors for mass. And ResMed is the leading and has been the leading company in that space for about 15 years. So when I started selling that, I didn't have to go in like I did at the first company and be like, hey, I'm Adam with ResMed. They're like, hey, no, we know the ResMed. You're just the new rep, right? So I had to get really good at account management, customer service, cross-selling and upselling and solution selling. So I did take away some market share here and there, but it was a lot about creativity and different things. So I grew that, 10 million in 3 years up to 25 million, but I didn't have to be like, my reputation wasn't the reputation that scaled that. So then when I go into digital marketing, I in the first month, July of 2020, I sold $0 in new revenue. I'm like, hey, I went full time and I thought entrepreneurship was me sitting in the pool and enjoying drinks whenever I wanted to and being able to stay up late and sleep in and do it. Like, I just thought the business was going to grow because I'm full time now, right? Obviously didn't happen. So in August of 2020, I joined a mastermind community that talked about a lot of different things in business, but a lot about personal branding. And so it clicked at that moment that, hey, Adam, if I don't figure out this prospecting, lead gen, sales game, I'm going to be back in medical device sales really quickly because there's hundreds of thousands of options for business owners when it comes to digital marketing, whether it's other agencies or in-house people or freelancers or whatever. And so I just started posting consistently on social media back in August of 2020, and I've pretty much done so for the last almost 4 years. And every single time we've had massive, massive growth in our agency, it's been almost directly correlated to things happening with my personal brand, whether that's speaking events, the launch of my podcast, our own in-person events, my YouTube channel, all those other things, or we get some big partnership through my personal brand that gets us multiple leads in every single day. That's kind of the end-to-end version of how it started versus the importance and kind of how it came to light.
Yeah. Let's unpack a couple pieces here. So when you're posting on social media, can you give somebody a kind of like brief roadmap of what you're posting? And I know that there's a lot that goes into this in Adam's course where he's teaching this branding stuff, but can we just get like a high level overview? What platforms are you posting on and like how frequently and what types of material?
Facebook drives about 90% of our results in revenue. So Facebook is the one that I'd say, like I was just speaking at them this weekend in Nashville. I'm like, hey, if I was going to tell you to go post on one platform, this would be the platform to go post on right now. We also post on Instagram. I also post on LinkedIn. I do TikTok. I do YouTube, and I have a podcast. But if we're just talking about Facebook right now, I recommend posting twice a day, every single day, Monday through Sunday, and then one reel a day, and then one live every single week. So a live would be like you doing a training on Google Business Profile tactics, techniques, strategies, or you have a client that's super, super happy with your stuff. You bring Patrick the roofer on, and Patrick the roofer is helping you sell to the other roofers that are watching that on your live. And then I also recommend you adding 5 new people every single day that are business owners that would be ideal client profiles that mirror who your ideal client profile is or other clients that you're already working with. And the biggest aspect with all of this is that you're not selling with your content in the traditional sales or digital marketing asset route. Whereas you go to 90% of digital marketers, you're going to see the cover photo that says, hey, I can guarantee you 10 to 20 new roofs a month. And then they have a heat map that they like just manipulated the keyword on. And they're like, hey, we're the greatest marketing company since sliced bread, right? You're doing it in a way where you're either telling a story about a client, digital marketing, et cetera, with like 10 to 20% of your content. And then the other 80 to 90% of your content for me is I'm trying to go after entrepreneurs, even when I was running the agency. So I'm just doing like self-development, personal journey, health and fitness, motivation, discipline, all the things that I know will drive engagement, because that's really what you're looking for on social media. You're trying to get engagement and reach, so that way it finds more of your ideal clients. If you post all about yourself all day long, or all about digital marketing, or all about your agency, it's not that it couldn't work. It's just you're not going to be able to get the reach and engagement you want to be able to go get more clients than you would be able to get on your own.
you've got to engage them in a lot of different ways. And people are going to want to work with people that they know, like, and trust. And if you just post about your agency, you're not giving them the opportunity to know, like, and trust you, right? Similar to how they get it from every other marketing agency out there, right? So you're kind of warming them up with who you are.
Absolutely. You already have a chance when you add a business owner and they see, right? Because hopefully your profile is set up that way. They see that you run a digital marketing agency. They're like, oh my gosh, Patrick, Adam is sending me a friend request. If I accept this, I know I'm probably going to get pitched at some point. Like, that's the mindset that these business owners go into because of the nature of digital marketing agencies. You want to make it so simple and easy for them to be able to add you and you not jump into their DMs, do whatever X, Y, and Z, so that one day you can open up the door to be able to, right, just build a relationship with them. And then when they need your services, you're the first person they think of.
It's kind of like what realtors have done for a long time, right? They're just like, they like to stay top of mind. And then when you finally sell a house, like, this is the person you think of, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a piece that I think the hard part about this for a lot of people is when they have to decide that their Facebook is now going to be dedicated towards this mission. And they have this kind of like I went through some personal development. They call it, they in this course I was going through, they called it your nerd. So your nerd is like this person that is like telling you that you're not good enough or telling you to like second guess, like, what are other people going to think? I think a lot of people get held up with that, where they're like, man, what if I create this content and nobody likes it? Or, what if like everyone thinks I'm stupid, right? And you've talked about this and we all have it to some extent, this like self-confidence issue. Do you think, like, after coaching people, do you think that's where their hesitation is? Do you feel that? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that it's an easy thing to utilize as an excuse. It's real, but people that don't get started, like, that's one of the first walls that they'll put up, even if they don't believe it themselves. So I look at it the same way as if, like, and Patrick, I know you've had chats with business owners where you're like having a conversation with them and they're like, oh, I've been screwed over by so many marketing companies already just because you say that you're a marketer. And you're like, you've been in business for 3 months. How have you been screwed over by so many it's just the easy card that they can lay down to defend themselves and be like, hey, I'm good. I would say even more than that. And this is kind of where the whole idea for Builders of Authority really started. It was in March of 2020. I got on my first stage in front of about 100 marketing agencies. And I talked about my journey from 0 to 7 figures in 15 months with personal branding. So I literally kept it super simple and easy, sharing a lot of the same stuff that I'm sharing with you today. And Barry Nix, who I know is a friend of both of ours, he's like, that was the most enlightening talk at that event, but that I've honestly ever heard. And it's reshaped. It was 2 years ago. It reshaped the way he ran his agency and he rebranded it and did all of that stuff. But it was mind-blowing how many of the Barry stories there were from that particular event. And I got off the stage and people are like, Adam, that was incredible. Do you have a course? Do you have a program? Do you have a mastermind? Do you have whatever? And I'm like, no, I'm a digital marketing agency owner. I'm like, I've already done the shiny object stuff in 2021. I don't want to complicate this any further in 2022. And it hit me that I was just shocked because nothing that I shared was outside of the box, but it was the consistency and discipline of doing it time and time again, and the combination of the quote unquote blueprint, if you will. Most people lack a purpose or a why behind why they're in business or doing a particular activity. And then their actions and their disciplines don't equal what they're looking for from a goal standpoint. So they're always unfulfilled. They're always chasing the next thing. They're always willing to go post on social media for 30 days. But if they don't get $30,000 in recurring business, when they have an agency only doing $10K a month in MR, they're going to quit. even though that would be tripling their agency right now, it's just not good enough, right? Or they'd rather go buy the next course. They'd rather go buy do all those things. So that's what I've learned the most. And that's why I have so much fun with it, because I'm just living my life showing builders of authority as an example of what I do or what I've done in my agency and what I continue to do, like getting the speaking opportunities, getting the partnerships, getting the affiliate, like all of these things. I'm able to go share with them, hey, here's what I'm doing and here's what I'm getting. So that way you can basically condense the amount of time it takes you in order to get these results.
It's this like delayed gratification piece that, that experiment with the little kids where they put a cookie in front of the little kids and they leave for 5 minutes. They tell them, hey, if you wait, I'll give you a second cookie. And like 80% of the kids ate the cookie. And then years later, they came back and they saw the people that waited had a lot more success. There were better relationships, more fit. That is the same thing here. If we don't get the immediate results, like they're ready to jump ship, but it's really that compounding effort that stacks up over time. It picks up steam and it picks up more steam and more steam. And it's always boggled my mind coaching agencies where like you get them to a win and then the actions change that created the win, where it's like, okay, like I did this, I got a win. We'll keep doing more of that. Right. Just like multiply that. Right. Just like I got stuck when I was building my agency. It was like 2 years I got to $4,000 almost immediately. And then I just stayed there because I tried this and I tried this and like, let me learn Facebook ads and all these different things. I'm like, how about I just do more of what got me to 4,000? Because if I can get to 4, I can get to 8. And then I kind of switched back, had a couple moments and realized that that's what was missing. And then everything took off. And it sounds like that was a really valuable learning lesson for you. This personal brand, no matter what business you start, it can follow you around, right? Like you've got all these businesses, you get these opportunities to speak on stages, and who knows who's in the audience, right? And it's like there's more credentials, there's more followers that are happening. When you have more followers, it's just like immediate credibility. It seems like one of the most valuable currencies today is the personal brand.
It definitely is, because my situation over the last couple of months is a perfect example. Like if you would have told me last year that I wouldn't have a digital marketing agency, I would have thought you were crazy. But I launched Builders of Authority, did that on the side for 3 months. Now we're a little over 3 months of doing just this. And we've already done 6 figures in business. We have about $20,000 in recurring revenue. That would not have been possible if I didn't have a personal brand. So I hate to tell people like, prepare for the worst possible case scenario, prepare for the unknown. But there is validity in doing that, especially when it comes to building your personal brand. You don't know what the future is going to hold. And maybe you decide you want to do X, Y, and Z in the future. Well, if you have a personal brand, it's a lot easier to have quick success and continued scaled success when people already know, like, and trust you. Tell people all the time, if I have to go be a realtor, if I have to start this thing over, right? If I have to start over or whatever, and I'm like, okay, the only thing I can do is go sell or buy houses, help people do that. I probably won't have anybody like locked up this week, but I guarantee you by the end of the month, I'd have a client. Because my personal brand, people already know, like, and trust me.
Yeah. Wherever you're going to go, you're going to be there. Right. So having this come with you is, it's so important. Right. And Adam, let's change gears a little bit. I know that you've overcome things along the way here. And I know it's like you had mentioned kind of different thresholds in your business. Were there times where you hit a plateau with your company and like, what did you have to learn to get to the next level?
I will say that from 0 to 30, I was everything other than I was using some white label fulfillment. So that was fine. But until I like transitioned to Height, where I got an account manager, that was kind of like the next tier of like taking off the account management hat. And I went on full sales mode, CEO in full sales mode. And then in 6 months, I went from 30 to 100K.
So when you've spent all your time on sales, you like tripled your business
In 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really the way you tell it, it kind of sounds like you were doing all these different things. When you were able to offload it and really focus on the things that were revenue generating activities, like things just exploded essentially.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so you got to 100K. Did things slow down and you had to like kind of regroup again?
Well, so at that point, we ended up having 3 account managers. So then my next bottleneck is, hey, I got to like manage these account managers. So I brought in a director of operations that ended up being like our COO. So I brought her in literally like 2 weeks after we hit 100K. I was like, hey, this is growing way too quickly. We were bringing on 20 new agency SEO and ads or web, like 20 new agency clients a month. It was a lot. We only ended up getting up to about 125 in new revenue recurring in June. So 6 months. So like we grew, right? We grew massive year over year still. But like that from April to October, when we went from 30 to 100, that was massive growth. And then 100 to 125 was like we just couldn't break past it. It was at that point when I realized I was still doing all the sales, obviously, but like it's really tough to get past like 125 without somebody at least generating leads or doing follow up. Like I didn't have an executive assistant. Like I was doing a little bit of everything. And at that point, that's when I started to go to more masterminds and I started to speak at more events. And so it was just like my time was precious, obviously, but also there was less of it. So we hired Demi, who ended up taking over our sales stuff in June. And we went from 125 to 200 in 6 months after that.
Yeah. Let's break down a couple of these hires. These are really important positions. This operations position, I recommend making that hire earlier because it can absolutely drive you crazy. What I've learned is most entrepreneurs, we kind of have this like visionary mindset where we're really good at parts like sales and like solving big problems. And it's unusual for somebody to be good at that as well as good at the operations piece, right? So this piece is often like a growth, like once you kind of like find that puzzle piece in there, it's often leads itself to growth. It's kind of that 1-2 punch though. You've got to have the salesperson, the follow-up, you've got the account manager. So they're making sure they're reducing the churn. When you went to hire that operations person, where did you find them and what were you looking for?
I found her on LinkedIn. She was working at another like pretty large traditional marketing agency. So they did a lot of like TV, radio, programmatic, other stuff, but she had worked at a smaller agency, like her first job right out of college. So I was looking for some industry experience. I was also looking for somebody that like, and this is how I ended up hiring Demi, and this is how I hired 3 more people that I think like one of my best features is being able to hire the right people and put them in the right places, doing non-traditional stuff. And what I mean by that is the people that are actively looking for jobs are not the people you want. Every single person I've hired, I'm not going to say they were content in their current role because obviously they left, but I never had to pay them like more than they were making, but it was selling them on the opportunity that I was willing to give them inside of our company. But they usually, everybody thinks that people want more money. Usually they want more opportunity and to know that they are appreciated and that they have the things that are most important to them. So I would always go and find someone other than one employee that I hired. She's still with the company. She's phenomenal, but she wanted to take a step back because she was traveling at her previous job, which is a separate conversation. But they were right at the cusp of like the role I would be hiring them for. Otherwise, if I do an apples to apples hire, I'm going to have to overpay for that person, especially if they're coming from a large, like corporate-ish type company. So she was basically a senior account manager, not doing anything other than managing clients, but had been doing that for 4 years in 2 different companies. I was bringing her in to manage 3 people and basically run the company. So that's where, but I did that with Demi, who was like inside sales, brought her into front forward facing sales, like a little bit more like outreach and things like that. At every role I've done that. And where most agencies go wrong. So when I was at Height in the day-to-day and running a franchise, we were one of 26 locations. At one point, we were a third of all of the revenue of all 26 locations combined. And I won Height Franchise of the Year both years in a row, and we were the only one for most of the time to consistently be over 100K. So it wasn't just that like the gap was like 200 and then somebody's at like 150. You know, it was like we were at 200 and then the next was at like 80. That was the gap. But I was the only one that was in multiple masterminds. I was the only one that had a business coach. I was the only one that was doing a lot of the personal branding stuff that I talk about. So success leaves footprints. It leaves the clues. It leaves all those things. But I was the only person of all the agencies other than one other one that had W-2 employees. So most everybody were trying to like hire freelancers to manage their accounts. And I was the only one with medical benefits. I was the only one with 401k. I was the only one going above and beyond. And so what most people try to do is they try to cut corners, right? Because they want to keep on to more money and pay themselves more money. But what they don't realize is they're actually long-term hurting their agency because their employee retention is going to be very.
So sometimes cheaper is more expensive, right?
Usually always is.
Yeah. So Adam, let's talk just a little bit about the mechanics of like how you use LinkedIn. We're using LinkedIn Recruiter to reach out to these people.
No, just the basic stuff.
You're just like searching, like how did you locate these people and these other companies? And then what did you say to them to open up that conversation?
I was like typing in keywords of like marketing or advertising or whatever. And then I would break it down to St. Louis and then Columbia, Missouri, which is about 2 hours away from me because we were remote companies. I'm like, hey, if they're in Columbia, which we hired 2 people from there, great talent, cost of living is less. So we were able to get really good talent for about what I would pay here for top level, entry level here is what I meant to say. So I was going and doing that. And then I was just reaching out, hey, we have this role. It's a brand new role, but here's kind of what we're looking to do. Is this something that you would be interested in entertaining, or do you know someone that would be a good fit? And that's where I think like a lot of times people don't ask that second question. If you can get a referral to someone, hey, she's not going to be posting on LinkedIn that she's looking for a job, or she's not going to be applying to this stuff because she doesn't want anyone to know, but I know she's my friend at this company. She's looking. That's how we got some applicants from that as well. But I mean, I did spend a lot of time. It was time consuming, but it ended up paying off. And so I just didn't want to put up the job posting and only take the applicants of the people that were actively applying. I wanted to go find kind of the hidden gems.
Yeah, it's like the people that are searching for jobs a lot of times are like in this market, if you're a rock star, then like you're going to have an offer stacked. You're going to go from one company to another because of offers pulling you. You're not going to just like scour the job boards, right? Because your talent has alerted people and you're the type of person that's getting poached. And you want to grab rock stars, right? We don't want to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Are you comfortable sharing, like you hired this director of operations and this was a promotion in a sense for this person because they had been this kind of senior account manager. What do you pay somebody for that position starting out and an agency?
Yeah. So we paid her $70,000 a year, plus benefits, plus 401k. And then when we promoted her to COO, we were paying her about $100K plus some bonuses.
At that position, she was really running your agency, right? She's making sure that all the clients are getting what they need, and she's being held accountable for their results. And you're more focused on like the sales and branding stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, and basically managing her, and we were running EOS as well. So running obviously the department meetings, taking a look at that scorecard, taking a look at the P&L, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's been so crazy leaving is we had a really freaking profitable agency doing really freaking well. And so I was basically doing just that. I wasn't running the agency. Yeah, but when you can create an agency like that, which it should be everybody's goal, it's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful. Yeah. This was the breakthrough for us, when I think it was 2019, and we had everything pretty much on autopilot. And my goal had been to travel the world. So we started doing that. We started moving every 3 months, and, the agency was growing, and we're all over the place. We're in Europe and Thailand, and it was amazing. Like, this is why I built it, is I wanted freedom. When you kind of hit that spot, it's like, this is what it was all for. Right. Yeah. So Adam, looking back on things, what would you have done differently? What would you have changed in, like, this would have saved me a lot of pain had I known this?
I think hiring an executive assistant. So like when I started Builders Authority, the first hire I made was an executive assistant, a large part into reading, Dan Martell's book, who I know you know Dan, and that's an incredible book. I would do that early on as an agency owner, because I probably made that director of operations hire. I would have done it sooner if I wasn't going to hire an executive assistant, but an executive assistant can take off a lot of the plate from what the director of operations could do. But I would say, like, there's some stuff, obviously, that, like, we'll have to do this podcast again, and I'll be able to share the reality of what ended up happening with my situation, because I think that'll probably help even more people. But what I can say right now is I think you have to be willing to go through some of the most difficult and uncomfortable times in your agency and not run away from the problems. I dealt with a lot of problems and dealt with a lot of them head on, but there was a lot of problems that I ran away from, which ended up getting me to the point of where I'm at today, because as I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to run through the wall. And so no matter how uncomfortable or how much you hate doing certain things, there's a time and a place where you're probably going to have to do those things. So if you're always looking for, like, the easy way out, or you're looking for someone else to come fix your problems, you're going to regret it.
Yeah. No matter what we do, we're going to run into challenging times. And I read this really influential book. It was called The Fast Lane to Wealth or something like this. It was MJ DeMarco. I can't remember the exact title, but it really had an impact on me. And it talked about these, like, 3 ways to wealth. And there's the sidewalk. And this is what we're talking about right now. It's like this person bounces from, like, career to career and job to job. And when they run into something different, then they're, like, on this next thing. So they're on the sidewalk, they're going slowly. Then there's a slow lane. And that's typically like the 9 to 5, where we save our money, we invest it in the stock market, maybe 10%. And hopefully after, like, 40 years, we've become wealthy. But we've given up a lot of the like, time in our life, and we have a ton of energy. And, with the way things are changing, like, maybe that's happening later. Then there's the fast lane, which is doing things of scale, right? Or magnitude. It's one of those two things, something that's repeatable or something that's big. And if you're going to do something in that fast lane, you're going to run into problems, right? There's going to be things in the road. You're going to have to swerve around or find your way through. Those other ones, there may be, like, less hectic along the way. And you have to decide whether you're willing to make that trade. Like, do you want this? Like, for me, I kind of look at this like, hey, we're all going to die someday. Our days are numbered. What do I want those days to look like? Well, I wanted to get there fast, right? I wanted to travel the world. I got to travel the world when I was, 35 or 36 instead of being 75. We're going zip lining and doing things like this, snorkeling and all kinds of stuff that, like, hey, maybe later in life I won't be as excited to do that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get there fast. With this in mind, Adam, what were some of the, I don't know if it's a book or a coach or a person that really influenced you and helped you out along the way that maybe somebody who's at the beginning of their journey could benefit from?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple different things. I think we implemented EOS in December of 2021. So reading traction and going through that process, EOS just in general takes the emotion out of managing a business, right? So the weekly meetings, the core values, the rocks, all of that stuff, it just, again, demystifies black and white gray area and just puts it in black and white. I would say hiring a coach and joining mastermind type communities. Again, were some of the things. I was the only agency in the franchise model that had EOS, and I was the only one that had a coach, and I was the only one that was in multiple masterminds. Again, success leaves clues and footprints. I think that's a key aspect. And then I think just be willing to do stuff differently than like 99% of agency owners. I'm one of the most untraditional, running an agency, one of the most untraditional digital marketing agency owners that are out there, which is why, like, when stuff goes on in the SEO community or like digital marketing space, like I usually hear it from you or like somebody else. Cause like, I'm just not connected to that, because most people don't look at me as like an SEO guy or a technical guy. Even though I'm actually really good at all that stuff, that's just not what I talk about, right? I did things untraditional, which kind of allowed me to kind of stay under the radar, if you will, of not being like, oh my gosh, I got to go get inundated with all this digital marketing lingo and all these other things, because those are rat holes a lot of really, really good agency owners go down, is they try to figure out how to add the 47 different new things, and then they get stuck in implementation and research and design and all that stuff, where I was just like, nope, I'm going to focus. I would have like KPIs on a daily basis for prospecting and sales, because you can have the best agency ever and your churn can be 0 or very, very low. But if you're not bringing on new clients and growing and scaling your brand, your agency is going to eventually dwindle. So have daily and weekly and monthly KPIs, especially daily, directly related to those things.
I love that. I think this is so important. And I've seen this time and time again. Well, you and I, we've spoken at a couple conferences together, and there's people that I've spoken to that are not running what I would consider like a big agency. And there are, to some extent, like they're still kind of like, hey, I've got to pick and choose what I do because of financial constraints. And simultaneously, these people can be absolutely brilliant with amazing SEO skills. And it's just like, man, like the amount of skills you have is so much higher than anyone in these bigger agencies that have created this personal freedom for themselves. And they don't really consider like finances the same way as you do when it's like, I got to make sure that I got to cover my rent. And this, like, I think you and I, we've been removed from those conversations for a while, and we focus on like, hey, I want to like go to Greece for the summer. I want to do this. You had a baby. You're doing these different things, right? So this focus on sales and marketing, Alex Hormozy says it's hard to be broke when leads are knocking down your door, right? It seems like this is where we should focus, but sometimes we really enjoy this research part of it, and then we neglect it a little bit, and then our business doesn't grow, and we can continue to add more and more skills over here. You're just adding more things to kind of like a lopsided equation, right? So it's something I really believe in, and I think you and I kind of see that the same. We have this like theoretical component to this, but I also like to have this more tactical thing. So what are a couple of the KPIs that you would track on a monthly basis to make sure that you're hitting? What would be like a benchmark for one of those?
I think the two biggest benchmarks we took a look at were, well, actually 3. Obviously, profit margin percentage. So you can talk about top line revenue all day long. We were almost more profitable at $750,000 a year as we were at 1.7 and 2.25, because you obviously have to have people on the team and all these other things. And then churn comes into consideration. So with that, client churn, and then new monthly recurring revenue. New monthly recurring revenue was like a big thing that we were taking a look at.
Got it. And what would be an acceptable profit margin for an agency? What do you think? What was a target for you guys?
So our target was 15%, and a lot of people hear that, and some people are like, oh, I'm actually under that. And some people are like, that's way too low. I was in a franchise, so I had, royalties. I had a lot of other things, and I was also paying people, including myself, decently well. So I hear people that are like, oh my gosh, I'm below that. And then I hear people that are like, oh my gosh, like I'm at like 50% profit margin. Well, I would challenge you if you're like, oh, hey, I'm comparing myself to other people. I've talked with the agency owners, and again, I'm not saying it's not out there, but I've talked with them and they're like, oh, at 50 or 75% profit and all these other things, right? They either are lying. Once you actually get to the P&L, you're like, no, dude, that like it's actually down here. Or they have very few clients, not a whole lot of revenue, and they're doing every bit and piece of the work and nothing is automated.
I think there's one more piece in there that a lot of people forget to do. There's a difference between your salary and the profit for the company. And if you are not taking a salary, then your profit is going to be way higher. And if you ever want to replace yourself, you're going to have to pay a salary there. So I think it's really important as a part of this like profit calculation is to have a market-based salary. Like if you are going to go work somewhere else or you're going to hire somebody to come in and take over these responsibilities, what is that person going to be paid? Include that in your cost structure, and your profit is what goes beyond that, right? So if you're making like, let's say your agency's doing, $50,000 a month, and there's no salary built in for the CEO, well, the CEO should be getting $50K or $15K, and you subtract all this, your profit margin can fall through the floor all of a sudden. And after including that, this 10 to 15%, like it has a whole different look, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You had some KPIs around sales, and we've been on here for a minute, so we're going to wrap this up. But what would the KPIs be around sales? What do you, I know that there's like new MRR, but from an action perspective, for somebody who's like, how many calls or like what metric were you measuring and what should that number look like?
Yeah, so I think the numbered metric should be obviously based on where you're at in business. Like for me, telling you what we were doing at $200K a month and with 3 people on our sales team is going to be completely different from somebody at $10K and you're doing all the sales yourself. What I would say is we were looking for about 12% MRR growth month over month, and our client churn rate was around 10%, give or take some points, pretty much every single month for a couple of years. So that's kind of what we were always looking for. Now, as far as KPIs, daily, weekly, and monthly, new CRM entry updates, so new leads into the system. My recommendation is, if you're just getting started or you're anywhere at, is if you're not putting 5 new leads into the CRM every single day, Monday through Friday, you're going to struggle to grow regardless of where you're at. From there, we had video audits. So we would get a lot of business from sending video audits, doing heat map reports, using Lead Snap, going through and say, here's all the issues with your website, blah, 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 blah. Discovery calls. So those are like 15 to 30 minutes, just like, hey, they submitted a contact form on the website. They reached out to me on social media. We just wanted to hop on and kind of understand what they were looking for. And then strategy calls and proposals. So we kind of like mirrored those in together. But those 4 KPIs usually painted a perfect picture on, did we hit our number or did we not?
This is fantastic leading indicators on like where we're headed and what we can expect. If you don't have these things in alignment, don't be shocked when you don't have the sales. You have nothing coming in the front door. So how are you going to produce anything? This was amazing, Adam. I always enjoy our conversations, man. And I appreciate you being so transparent with your numbers and what led to this and sharing your struggles. This is really where I think a ton of people are going to resonate with you along the way and find value and be like, hey, that's exactly what I'm struggling with. Adam, if somebody wants to reach out to you or get more information, where can they go to connect with you?
You just type in Adam McChesney on Facebook. You'll actually see me wearing the exact same shirt if you're watching this. My red Adam McChesney shirt. You can go there. Instagram is Adam L. McChesney, and you can also go to buildauthority.co, see some of the different stuff we have going on. And we have our free Facebook group, which is just Builders of Authority. Type that in, daily content, live weekly trainings, all that good stuff. But definitely stay connected. Let me know what you thought of the episode. And yeah.
Awesome, Adam, man. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And I look forward to hanging out with you again in person soon. So thanks a lot, Adam.
Thank you.